Oh hey. Today I'm gonna be ranking the albums of Billy Cobb. You might not have heard of him, he's pretty obscure. In fact, I didn't even know who he was until last week, but he seems like a pretty cool guy. Here he is on the first moon landing. Here he is shaking President Kennedy's hand. Here he is here he is helping children in Africa. Nah, but in all seriousness, take this video, I guess, as insight as to how I feel about some of my own music, how I think some of my albums and EPs hold up and how some others don't. Also, if you haven't listened to any of it, maybe you could use this video as, say, a guideline to see where to start. I recommend starting with the better stuff, but you do you. Let's start the list. All the way at the bottom at number 15, I have my debut album, Abstract. Oh, right. Now, I have a lot of problems with this album, and I have a hard time listening to it today, and I was still very well getting used to production and recording at this time. In fact, I still am, so that just shows how far back I was at that point. And the result is just most of the songs sounding like absolute shit. It is definitely not exactly a hi-fi album. I really had no idea what I was doing. Aside from that, another huge problem I have with this is that I feel like I was just, with each song, trying to mimic a different artist, and often butchering it, kinda. I think that's where I got the name Abstract, actually. For example, the song Jollification, which is, I believe, the oldest song recorded on here, I was trying way too hard to sound like My Chemical Romance. And there's some other tracks on here where I make a similar kind of mistake, I guess. Songs like The Literal Sound of Bittersweetness and A Sad Song of the Broken Heart is like, it sounds like I'm trying too hard to write a very powerful ballad, I guess, or like a very sad song. But it just honestly to me feels like it comes across as trying way too hard. There are some aspects of this thing that I do like. Some of the songwriting is actually pretty decent, like the intro track Flying Kites on Neptune, although again it sounds like shit production wise. I like that towards the end I incorporated an old recording from like 2009 of me singing a song that I wrote. It's like just barely in there, but like you can hear it, and it's kind of, I think that was kind of a good idea. L is one of the better songs on here, but there's like this weird, like it starts out as just like this cute love song, and it just goes into this like weird, like, hey, if you break up with me, then I'm gonna kill you, kind of, and I don't know what the fuck I was going for. Like, I guess I was going for like some serial killer thing. I don't fucking know. It just doesn't fit in the song at all, and it would be so much better without it. The song Laika is overwhelmingly sweet. There's 3 takes on here that I actually kind of like. The first being Euphoria Wave, which has got some pretty good lyrics, some okay production. The guitars are nice, and there's a pretty cool solo at the end. It's about death. I really like the lyrics on this one. Although it was a bitch to sing, and because I wrote it so high, it's like impossible to actually play live. And finally, I kind of like the song In Case I Die Unexpectedly, which was supposed to be like this song to express a bunch of inner feelings in case I die unexpectedly and I want people to know this stuff. It's a pretty decent song. I think some of the lyrics are really good. A bit sappy, but eh. And then I also like the way this album closes with The Days Move Quicker Once the Leaves Begin to Fall. I like the old radio sound, and the lyrics are pretty good. It's just a nice ending tune. But overall, I don't really like this album, and I'm not too proud of it. I mean, I remember like even when I released it on it, and I remember posting it on Instagram and saying in the caption like, I'm not completely satisfied with this, so just keep that in mind while listening. That's not exactly the best thing to say when promoting an album, but whatever. Yeah, it's yeah. We saw the sunshine coming down with sun-soaked petals on the ground. We sat with all the sights and sounds of all this makeup running down.
Let's gather around the campfire and sing our campfire song. Our CAMPFIRESONG song.
At number 14, we have 2017's Pretty Songs for Ugly People. This is another one where the production just kind of ruins the album. The songs are not terribly written, they're just nice little acoustic songs. I really like Flowers and Constellations, I think it has some pretty good lyrics. Sunshine Coming Down also has some good lyrics on it. Here We Are Now is like, it's okay, but at the same time I feel like it's kind of like a ripoff of In the Airplane Over the Sea. I mean, I remember that was the song that inspired it, and I think the influence just kind of transferred over a little bit too much. No One Comes Back is the only song on here that incorporates other instruments other than the acoustic guitar. The song is fairly straightforward and there's really not that much writing that went into it, so it's a bit lackluster. I mean, overall, this EP isn't terrible, but it's just far from my favorite that I've released. It's a shame because I actually really like the picture I took for the artwork.
My best friend smoking cigs and has a full-time job.
At number 13, I have 2018 Songs to Drive Off a Cliff To in C Major. The name for this album actually came from a meme of just like this CD someone found in a store, and it was called Songs to Drive Off a Cliff To in Volume 3 or something. I essentially just wanted to make like a very punk rock record, but it comes across more as like pop punk record, which is definitely not what I wanted to go for, but it just ended up being that way. I never really was a huge fan of the songwriting on this thing. I feel like the first two songs were just kind of written as I was recording them, just for the sake of them existing to be a full EP, and the end result is nothing mind-blowing. Does Your Grandmother Know That You're a Whore is actually a pretty funny song. I actually kind of like it. My favorite song on here though is Class of 17, which was inspired by a bunch of different people from my high school, and this album was written after I graduated, and it was just kind of like an outlook on, you know, everyone after class or after school ended, I guess. I think it has some pretty good lyrics and I like the sarcastic tone to it, but overall this EP is not too solid. Definitely one of my least favorites.
Saturday, I'll take you away. She doesn't even know the price she'll pay.
At number 12, we have Cool People Music. Now this one's only 3 tracks, and although the songs aren't terrible, it doesn't feel very complete. It's kind of actually lame how I made this. I remember, like, I think I made the artwork for it and I liked it so much that I just had to turn it into an EP, which happens from time to time, honestly. So I like the intro track, Hey Hello There. I like the, you know, the acapella kind of thing, and the lyrics are comical. It's a good intro, but it's just kind of weird how there's a 25-second intro to a 3-song EP, so I don't even know, you know, if it even counts like as an EP at this point. It's basically just a single. Sexually Transmitted Demons is actually a pretty good song. I quite like it. However, the influence from the Weezer song Pork and Beans spilled over quite a bit onto the chorus. It's very apparent. I guess you could say I spilled the beans. And then the last song, Ungrateful, is basically like an unfinished experiment recording that I made, and then I just kind of tried to finish it so that way I could have enough songs to call it an EP. So yeah, there's not much to take out of this one either.
My toilet's a portal to the underworld. Gotta wipe away my sins. Please, please, somebody put me out of my misery.
At number 11, we have last year's Halloween EP, Halloween 3. Now this one actually came across to me as a pretty big disappointment, considering how great its predecessor was, referring to Halloween 2. The thing is that the previous 2 Halloween albums that I recorded, I was planning way ahead of time. I ended up recording both of those and finishing them basically in the summer before, you know, the Halloween season even started. I wasn't even planning on making this one, however, until like maybe September or October. So this thing was really rushed and it just was recorded pretty quickly. And the end result is not too great. I do like the intro. It's another nice acapella intro. Howling at the Wind is one of those songs that just sounded a lot better in my head than the end product. Evil's a pretty good song, actually. I think it fits the album. My Toilet is a Portal to Hell is probably my favorite track on here. It was another attempt at making like a comical, spooky Halloween song, but it didn't quite reach the genius that I would consider some of my previous Halloween songs to be. I don't know, like it's just not as clever as some of the previous ones, but it's pretty good, I guess. And finally, I'm a Mummy Wrapped in Your Love was supposed to be like a nice 50s rock and roll throwback kind of song. I don't know, yeah, I was pretty disappointed in this album. It's a shame. The next Halloween album, though, that should be something to admire.
It's Valentine's Day and I can't find a single person that I like, and no one ever wants to take me out or ask me what I'd like. Patrick needs love too.
At number 10, I have the Valentine's Day EP. Now, for once, this one actually doesn't have any bad songs on it. What I consider to be its two flaws, though, are its shit production and it's too short. The first song, Valentine's Day, I think is one of the funnest songs I've written. I like the lyrics to it and the groove. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to it as well. Amor Vintage was just supposed to be like a doo-wop punk hybrid, and again, it's executed pretty well, but the song is too short. The last song, Project Nothing, was actually recorded much earlier than the other two songs, and I just kind of threw it on there to turn it into an EP, but that's also a really good song. It's very sweet. So yeah, the Valentine's Day album is pretty solid. I just wish I had better production, and again, it was longer.
You see right through me. Maybe it's just the hole in my chest from that time I got shot.
Trick or treat! Rawr, rawr.
At number 9, we have the first Halloween album, released in 2016. Again, this one really does have shit production. However, the songwriting kind of makes up for it. I think each song on this album is actually very well written, and I'm a big fan of it, and I would actually really like to remaster it someday or re-record it. I love the intro track, Halloween. It's got this very fun, spooky vibe, and the lyrics are really clever. It's about, you know, this group of monsters that wants to go out and eat children, and then once they go to try to eat the children eat them. It's a good Halloween song. Johnny is a really well-written song about a boy who meets this old man or whatever, and he turns out to be the devil, and he plays a game with him, and then he becomes, or he sells his life to him or soul to him.
You gotta pay the troll toll. If you want to get into that boy's hole, you gotta pay the troll toll to get in.
Again, just a well-written song. A solemn hymn for the somber and grim is might be the weakest on here, but I still like it. Killer Clowns is another fun song that was inspired by the whole killer clown phase during October 2016, where people dressed up as scary clowns just, you know, scare people, I guess, and they would just like walk in the woods and shit. It's a fun song. I like it. And I like how warm it sounds and how fall-y it is. And again, it has great lyrics. My favorite track, however, on here is probably the last track, Undead Serenade. I mean, sure, the idea of having a zombie fall in love with a human being has been done time and time again, but I think the way it's executed on this song and the lyrics are just fantastic. It's weird saying that because I wrote it, but like I'm really satisfied with the outcome. I think it's one of the best songs I've ever written. So yeah, overall the first Halloween EP is very, very solid. It just could use better production. That's literally its only problem.
Welcome to my party after 9. The drinks are cold, we're feeling fine. I'm not afraid to live my life, so please just hold me close and tight.
At number 8, I have my first EP, 2016 self-titled EP, Billy Cobb. There is something special about this EP to me. Again, the production is not the best. I know I keep saying that, but that's basically the case with all of my earliest albums and what brings them down a lot for me. But I remember having the feeling, I don't have the feeling anymore, but like I remember like every time I would write an album or an EP, I'd say to myself, like, does it top the self-titled EP? Because I was a huge fan of this for a long time, and I still like the songs on it. It's just fun pop punk, but at this point in my life, I'm not really a huge fan of fun pop punk anymore. But that being said, I do quite enjoy some of the songs on here. The first song, What Am I Doing, is again just a very fun pop punk song. Very catchy, very emotional, I guess. I think there's a pretty good vocal performance on here. Fun fact, when I was recording the vocals for this, it was so damn hot that I actually just took off all my clothes and recorded it butt naked. So when you listen to that song, just remember that. The song Summer is actually one of my favorites on here. It kind of diverges from the pop punk genre. It's just an upbeat indie tune about, like having a good time in the summer, I guess. Sovereign Citizens was a song that I wrote because I was just very pissed off at sovereign citizens, I guess, or people that call themselves sovereign citizens. It's pretty good, I guess. Full Season is a song that's actually very personal to me because I wrote it when I was either 9 or 10 years old, and this was my first time recording it with instruments and everything, like actually making a full arrangement for it. I even recorded it with my first guitar, which I have right here. It's just an old Squire, which at the time of writing the song was the only guitar I owned. I couldn't even play it. I like to think that 10-year-old me would hear the song and think, like, wow, I really turned out to be awesome. Although the lyrics basically make no fucking sense. And finally, the last track on here is actually one of my favorite songs that I've ever made. Stutter J37. This is definitely an outlier in the EP as it sounds very different from the others. It's kind of got like a dancey beat to it and it's just very bass driven. And it's just kind of like like a very emotional social anxiety song while also feeling the need to socialize. I think it's a well-written song, it's well performed, and it's well made. In fact, this is one of those songs where the end product actually sounds exactly like how it sounded in my head beforehand, which makes me like it so much more. So yeah, the self-titled EP, it's pretty darn good. Again, just needs better production.
Does a politician, does a war of attrition, does a hydrogen bomb care about your opinion?
I will dismantle this oppressive establishment board by board.
At number 7, I have 2017's Too Rad to Be Sad. Now musically, I actually think this one is pretty darn good. I think the lyrics on it are pretty clever and well written. I really like the instrumental on the song Everything Is All. The performance on all these songs is really good. It's a very solid EP. However, I do have my problems with it. Now when I was writing this, I was feeling really political for whatever reason, and I feel like the lyrics make me come across as like this very right-wing kind of douchebag, which isn't really the case. I do lean slightly to the right, but I'm also very left on some issues, so I feel like this EP kind of paints the wrong picture. Also, the title of the EP was made before I even made the songs, so I just wanted an album called this, and the name doesn't even fit the themes of any of the songs. I mean, basically not even the title track. But I do think this album is well written and it has some good sounds in it. It's also well performed with pretty decent production. Too Rad to Be Sad? Not bad.
And don't forget the dance we'll share when this damn song will fucking blare.
At number 6, I have 2017's Dancing with the Lights Off. I really did release a lot of EPs in 2017, didn't I? I still think to this day that this is one of my funnest EPs that I've made. The first song, In Case You Wanted a Song to Dance To, is easily, I think, one of the funnest songs I've written, and another one of my favorites. Everyone I Know is either a stoner or a basket case, and the song Reagan Bush 84 really fit the theme of the album and kind of have like the same sound. Social Justice Warriors, however, I kind of regret making at this point. It's not that I completely disagree with it, it's just like it feels like it's kind of unnecessary to make a song like that, especially in today's age with all the Ben Shapiro memes and whatnot. It's just kind of cringy. This was another EP where it was intended to be a single, but the artwork for it was just so good that I wanted to make it an EP. That single being In Case You Needed a Song to Dance To, which is easily the best song on here. But the production is good, the sound is pretty consistent, and it's a well-performed, emotional, and fun record, especially with the song In Case You Needed a Song to Dance To.
It's the trash, isn't
It's
it?
a sweet, sweet trash.
At number 5, I have my latest release, my 2019 EP, Trash. I think this is my second best EP that I've released. All the songs on it are pretty well produced, and they are just well written, I guess. And what makes these songs so great is that I actually took my time with them. Each of these songs actually had love put into them, as opposed to like writing one song for an EP and then just trying to write more that kind of fit the same theme just for the sake of making it an EP. Each of these songs did have love put into them, so it does make for a good record. The intro track, I Hate You More Than I Hate the News and I Really Hate the News, is probably my least favorite on here, but it's a fun song. It's just like a huge fuck you to, I just imagine, like everything that I hate in a person, I guess. It's very sarcastic and upbeat in tone. I love the sound of I Wanna Be Spider-Man. That song was basically written just because I was like seeing all this Spider-Man shit and I was like, damn, it would be really cool to be Spider-Man. I mean, who doesn't want to be Spider-Man? He's my favorite superhero. But yeah, I really like the production choices on this one. Michael Cera playing Scott Pilgrim, playing Marlon Brando, playing Vito Corleone is another good song on here. I like the tempo change and the themes, and it's another good performance. The final track, Make of This What You Will, was another one with interesting production choices. I was just picturing all this weird psychedelic imagery in my head and writing it into words, I guess. I just wanted to make a weird and creepy song, and I think I succeeded. Yeah, I really like this latest output from me. That sounds so weird. I like this latest output from me.
And days will pass, I'll be happy. Waiting's all I've got, so be patient. Waiting's all I've got, so be patient while the
At number 4, I have my EP, Dollar Store Diamonds. This is to date my favorite EP that I've released. First, I just want to say that I'm very, very proud of the artwork for this one that I made. Probably the best artwork that I've released to date. I love the folk punk direction that I was going in. It was very influenced by Neutral Milk Hotel, the Decemberists, Harley Poe and the Violent Femmes, some more. This is also one of the best produced albums that I've made, I think. I love the intro track, Dollar Store Diamonds. It's one of my favorites on here. Again, just very well performed, I think, and well written. Very abstract lyrics, which I think works very well. And I like the build up to the end. Ode of the Lonely might be my least favorite track on here. The song Hell, however, is easily, I think, one of the best songs I've ever made. I love how hectic it is and the changes, the orchestrations, the jazzy, crazy sound, the very prophetic and damning lyrics. I think it really is a good representation of hell. Do you remember Talking to Me was supposed to be just like a really somber sounding song, and it's pretty decent. And then Blue Mountains is a good closer. I like the lyrics on it and the sound as well. Overall, this is a pretty consistent and a pretty solid record. Dollar Store Diamonds and Hell are definitely the highlights on here, but I just love the consistency of it, and I think it's a pretty good listening experience, and I'm really satisfied with the way it turned out.
factions are all fighting and the oceans have gone dry. The only source of water is the tears that we will cry.
I made this one with my tears.
At number 3, I have my 2017 full-length LP, The Void. Now this thing does have its flaws. The production isn't the best, but the concept, the consistency, and the songwriting are all pretty solid on here. It does feel like a very complete record, as all the songs kind of have a similar sound or a similar tone at least. And they aren't explicitly connected, but they do feel connected, and some of the songs do have a connected concept, I guess. In some ways, it's kind of my darkest record to date. There are a lot of dark topics on it, a lot of personal topics as well. I love the intro track, A Song to End the World. It's a nice folk tune and a great album opener, and I think the lyrics on it are very, very well written. Our State of Living is a very big stadium sounding rock song. It's pretty decent. I really like the song Buster Keaton. That's one of the most personal on here. Talking to Trees is another personal one. In fact, now that I think of it, this is definitely my most personal album to date. Bending to a Tape Recorder was Fending to a Tape Recorder was also another personal one that I think is very kind of fun, but also sad at the same time, I guess. That one seems to be somewhat of a fan favorite. Fighting Beneath a Black Hole is, I believe, the first song that I started working on for this album, and the end result isn't nearly as good as I'd like it to be. However, I do really like the outro with the old Civil War song. Open the Gates also didn't turn out as well as I wanted it to. Through the Void is a very experimental interlude that I think kind of really adds to the album. It's nice to see myself experimenting at this point in time. Sailing Over Cities is probably the most conceptual album on here. It's about sailing through the void on this giant ship and seeing the weird, wacky, and beautiful world that lies behind it. The following song, What Now, kind of follows the concept of that song directly, and it's a very sad sounding song. It's short, but I think it's good. I really like the song Dead House, but the production kind of soils it just a tad bit. Ode to the Homeland Generation is another personal one. And the next song, The Paper Kingdom, is one of the best songs I've ever written, if not the best song I've ever written. However, I think the execution could have been better. It follows the perspective of this father who just lost his daughter and exploring some of the feelings that he would feel, and I think it's very, very well written and very, very well put together. The name obviously inspired by the unreleased My Chemical Romance album, which covered a similar topic. The Color Blue is, I believe, my only rap song, I guess, but that's another one where I really like the concept and the lyrics on. Not a personal one, but I think it's just a well-written, well-performed rap song. I like the song Ghost. I think it's a fun, catchy song, but it's a little too simple. I like the lyrics, though. And then finally, the outro song, Out of Reach, is easily the most personal song I've ever written. In fact, it's so personal that I don't even want to talk about what it's about because it would just feel wrong. You can try to figure it out for yourself, but I'm not talking about it. But I really like this song. Again, I think this is a very consistent record, very solid, very personal, and very dark. I'd say it's a very solid addition to my discography.
When you're a Frankenstein monster, nobody wants you, and all I wanted was a friend.
At number 2, we have my second Halloween album, Halloween 2. I don't know what it is about this record, but I just love the way it turned out. Again, the production on this one is good. I love the intro track of this guy going out on Halloween with a knife and, killing some children, which then goes into this fun, crazy reinvention of this song from the early 1900s called At the Devil's Ball. I believe it was sung by Billy Murray. But yeah, this song's from like the 1910s or 20, and I just think it's really cool how I remastered it. My Son the Antichrist is another very well-written song by myself, I'd say. I think it's a clever idea, clever execution, and really clever lyrics. It's one of the funniest and wittiest songs that I've written to date, and I just love how upbeat it is despite the lyrics being very dark, I guess. I'm Only the Frankenstein Monster is another one of my favorite songs that I've written. It was inspired after watching Bride of Frankenstein, which is one of my all-time favorite horror movies. It's basically just told from the perspective of Frankenstein and how he feels misunderstood and he just wants love. I love how I incorporated the violin piece from Young Frankenstein into it. It just fits so well. Cruel Sister is another remastering of an old folk tune, coming in at almost 7 minutes. It's a nice Celtic folk tune that's pretty creepy. It's what they would call a death ballad. Freak City's another great track on here that was inspired by a lot of 80s Halloween songs like Thriller or Somebody's Watching Me, because those are the kind of songs that you always hear around Halloween, especially in like Halloween stores like Party City and Spirit Halloween. I just wanted to capture some of that atmosphere, and I think I did a pretty good job. Blood was the first song I wrote for this, and it's a pretty good song. It's just from the perspective of a vampire. He wants your blood, just give it to him, The title track on here, Halloween 2, is another pretty good one. I don't think it was quite as good as the first Halloween song, but it's still decent. Again, a fun, spooky sounding song about the topic of Halloween. And then finally, the album ends with a reciting of what I believe to be Edgar Allan Poe's last poem, Annabel Lee, which I think is a good closer. This is another very consistent, well-performed, and very well-written album. Also very fun, very Halloween-y. I really love it. Easily one of the best in my discography.
I know your eyes can see right through
finally, at number 1, I have my latest album, Strokes of Incarceration. And no, I'm not just saying this to promote it. I actually really like it. Although this album isn't quite as personal as some of the Void is, it's still a pretty personal album. The songs were written from a very real place and inspired by very real events, mostly inspired by the hardships of university. Immediately, you get a sense of discomfort, disgust, and anger with the first song, 45 Minutes to Freedom, a song that was just me lashing out about everything that I hate about going to college. I think it's a very beautiful written and performed song, and I love the change up at the end. The song Break the Ice was also inspired by some real events and some real people. It's a nice indie jam, I like it. Rocky Horror is another one of my favorite songs that I've ever made. I love how sad it sounds, how kind of true it is to like the original emo sound, I guess. Again, a well written and performed song. At this point, the record actually gets a little bit more experimental with the songs Happy Times and especially the song Radio Waves. I love the change up in Happy Times and some of the experimentation on it. Radio Waves is a very weird, upbeat, crunchy indie song that I really think turned out well. Patience is 8 minutes and 40 seconds long, and the lyrics are just kind of inspired by more insights as to what I'm thinking sometimes, I guess. And I think instrumentally this is also a good one. And then finally, another great song on here is the last track, Houses and Buildings, which again is inspired by hardships of university. It acts as a really good closing track with repeating melody and lyrics, but with a very big and grand, explosive buildup, and it just sounds very, very emotional and heartfelt, especially towards the end. Although, like I said, this isn't my most personal album, it definitely hits very close to home. It feels very complete, very consistent. I love some of the experimentation on it. This is probably the most mature sounding record that I've made, and I think as of right now, it's the best in my catalog. I'd highly recommend a listen. But yeah, that wraps up ranking my own albums and EPs. Happy April Fool's Day. Like I said, as of right now, Strokes of Incarceration is what I believe to be the best album that I've made. However, if Halloween 4 turns out anything like I've been planning it to, it should take its place, I think. Halloween 4 should be a killer, kick-ass record. I'm very excited for it, and I think you should be too. Well, yeah, good night. Are you serious? Oh my god. Oh my god.